Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Coffee, where in today's episode, we will sift through, analyze, and examine the latest confirmation that Anakin is indeed making an appearance in The Rise of Skywalker. We will further discuss the context to which he fits into the story. That's today here on Star Wars Coffee.
I have spoken.
Hello there to all of the returning subscribers, but if you're new to the channel and you're just finding me for the first time, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on this video and any other video from the channel that you check out, and be sure to hit that notification bell so that the bell is completely filled in, as this is the way you will never miss a new video the second it goes live.
Do it.
Furthermore, we will be issuing a spoiler warning for anybody who doesn't want to know anything more about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, as there will be spoilers from the film in this episode of Star Wars Coffee. So consider this your spoiler warning. Alright, with that being said and out of the way, we're going to dive into this latest confirmation that Anakin is going to be making an appearance in The Rise of Skywalker. And as you can probably tell from the title of this video, I am definitely sure that Anakin is going to be making his appearance in the final chapter of the Skywalker saga. This report today that we're going to be examining comes to us from the Supreme Leaker himself, Mr. Jason Ward, over at MakingStarWars.net. We're going to be going over this article that he wrote and talk about what it means for Anakin to come into the Rise of Skywalker. And we've been doing a lot of Jedi Paxis leaks on the channel lately, and so what I did is Jedi Paxis has actually made a comment about this leak that Jason has brought to our attention, and I'd like to quote Jedi Paxis because these two are the most credible leakers for this upcoming film, and they intertwine their leaks beautifully together unintentionally. These two have never met, but Jedi Paxis has said the following about Jason Ward, saying, quote, "Jason Ward is many things, but I don't believe him to be dishonest. If he says he's written an article about Anakin, I have no reason to believe that he hasn't." There you have it, the Jedi Paxis seal of approval, if that is of any importance to you. To me, it makes this seem all more plausible and less vacuous of a claim. So without further ado, let's dive into the Supreme Leaker's article. Quote, "The most common question I am asked every time I mention Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker has to do with Anakin Skywalker. Will Anakin show up in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker? A few sources have now seen the film, and while they were tight-lipped in general about what they saw, they did give me some confirming nods about Anakin and his involvement in the film. Other very trusted sources have heard the sound mix of The Rise of Skywalker, which back up what those who saw the film believe they have heard. If you have been following spoilers for the episode 9, this will be somewhat obvious to you, but a pretty general confirmation might make some fans able to relax a little. So I'm sharing that for those spoiler fans like myself. Anakin's voice is heard at the end of the film, and sources say it sounds like Hayden Christensen, rather than the Clone Wars voice actor Matt Lanter. While sound mix tweaks are possible, none of my sources believe the Skywalker voices will be omitted from the climax of the film. Just for the purposes of full disclosure, these viewings are very recent, but what day the film was locked is still in question, but we have no reason to believe this has or will change. So there's a slight chance the list of names below could shift in a minor way, but we don't think that it is likely. To be extra clear, these are not Force ghosts, but disembodied voices heard during the climax of The Rise of Skywalker. I'm sure it will make some fans annoyed because it might not be enough for them and they would prefer it to actually happen visually. Without having seen the film, I can only guess about the efficacy of this inclusion being entirely oral. To the best of my knowledge, you do not see these characters, and because some might be living and some might be dead, it makes sense to keep it contained to audio, and to show that Rey is doing the important action at the end that matters the most, using defense as her offense, as a Jedi should. That concludes the first section of this article, so to say all of that in a different fashion, Anakin is going to be in the film as his voice. Expect Hayden Christensen's. All the evidence that leads up to it suggests that Hayden Christensen makes the most sense, rather than the Clone Wars Matt Lanter, as Jason has stated. With my own personal conjecture, I would say that it is all possible to have this version of the film be screened and then have a slight ad 2 weeks before, just as Ewan McGregor had his little cameo added to The Force Awakens just 2 weeks before the film came out. So I would expect that if they want Anakin to be visually on screen, along with Luke and Leia as Force ghosts, that it would make sense for them to do this with as little time before the film is actually going to be distributed and released, as this would keep that secret much more contained and much more locked up as humanly possible. So to continue on further, the next section, the context of the climax of The Rise of Skywalker. Quote, a fully rejuvenated Darth Sidious sits upon his stone throne on Exegol. While the space battle happens above the dead world, Rey and Ben Solo lay incapacitated. Used as conduit for the Sith Lord, Sidious apparently weighs his options and chooses his granddaughter to be his apprentice. Seeking revenge against the Skywalker family for his defeat at Endor, Ben Solo is force-pushed into the abyss of Exegol. An all-powerful Sidious sends his lightning into the sky above Exegol, and the Resistance fleet is immobilized in space during the end of battle. All seems lost when the voices of the Skywalker family speak to Rey, waking her up, revitalizing her for the last stand against the Sith Lord. Anakin and Luke command Rey to awaken. Anakin and his children start the process. I'm told Yoda and Obi-Wan then follow down the line and are joined by the voices of other powerful Force users that helped get the Jedi lineage to this point, including Ezra Bridger and Ahsoka Tano. All of these are voices layered upon one another, and the final voice is Leia's, and Rey awakens. Rey then rises with the sabers of Anakin and Leia in both hands. She approaches her grandfather Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord stops his stream of power from electrifying the battle above. Realizing Rey means to stop him, Sidious blasts his lightning from his fingertips at Rey. However, the young Jedi deflects the Sith Lord's lightning back at the villain. His own power destroys him, and the Skywalkers have vanquished the Sith once and for all. That concludes the main portion of the Supreme Leaker's article. To continually comment on this, the idea that Rey is able to defeat Palpatine simply by deflecting his lightning back at him seems rather simple, and hopefully that on screen it's a lot more complicated than that, even if that's all there is to it. Just the way that it has to be done is much more complicated. But this would really symbolize a lot of Anakin in this scene, in the sense that Anakin failed to overpower the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith when the Chancellor threw his Force lightning at Mace Windu and it was deflected. Anakin threw Windu off the side, and by having Anakin help Rey to overcome Palpatine, this would kind of put that back into place to what should have happened, which would be Anakin deflecting the lightning or remaining standstill while Mace Windu deflected the lightning to defeat Sidious once and for all in Revenge of the Sith, rather than having to have it drag out to all of this time later. So while the symbolic meaning of this scene would make sense, it just sounds a lot to be desired in terms of how complicated it is. So that's just my continual comment on this latest part. Let's continue a little further in the Supreme Leaker's article. Next section, titled, The Voices in Rey's Head. Quote, we've all passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now, but this is your fight. For The Rise of Skywalker, I have confirmed the following voices were recorded for the awakening sequence of Rey: Anakin Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka Tano, Ezra Bridger, and Maz Kanata. Are the voices of the dead? Does this mean that Ezra Bridger and Maz Kanata are dead? Maz was recorded, but we don't actually think she is in this sequence. Statistically, most Jedi are dead in this saga, so when it comes to Ezra, it is up in the air. Disembodied voices are often dead, but sometimes telepathy happens between living characters like Luke, Leia, and Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, or even between Rey and Ben in The Last Jedi. So if Maz made the sequence, it doesn't have to mean she's dead. Ezra is as old as Luke Skywalker, so it is possible he is dead by this point in the canon. Maz is in the end battle from the film, and she survives as far as I know. However, I think the point of the moment is that everything built up to this final stand, and all of these players in the story we've consumed up to this point have contributed to bringing Rey to this place in time to fight this fight. So if Maz is in the sequence, it makes sense, but she's also not really a Jedi, but she did aid Rey and the Jedi and has their abilities. Sources did not identify hearing probable voices such as Qui-Gon Jinn, Mace Windu, or Kanan Jarrus when I asked about them. My sources have all conceded that there was a lot going on in the moment and perhaps they missed it. My sources that have heard the sound mix to the film do not believe those characters show up. Personally, I don't think that Maz should be in the sequence. Yes, she had a big hand in helping Rey with going down the path of actually interpreting and becoming a Jedi, but she doesn't actually qualify as a Jedi the way that the rest of these characters in this lineup do. Anakin, Luke, Leia, Yoda, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Ezra. And then to have Maz Kanata in there just seems to make little to no sense from my perspective, only considering the rest of the characters. Yes, Maz had a large role in Rey's becoming a Jedi in The Force Awakens, but it doesn't make sense to me for her to be in the sequence, so I hope that that is not actually in it. As far as Rey waking up after Leia tells her to rise, it makes sense, because Leia is going to be Rey's main trainer, main master in the ways of the Jedi in this film, since she's going to be the only surviving character of the big three upon the entrance of this film. Overall, I'm just happy that Anakin is going to get some type of recognition in this film, whether it be his voice or whether he actually has that last minute change and appears as an actual Force Ghost once more. Either way, he deserves to be in this, and the fact that he's going to be in it at all makes me happy, but there is going to be some part of me, I must confess, that wants Anakin to be a Force Ghost in this and have more of a role in this film, just because he is the chosen one according to George Lucas, and that would just make a lot more sense in terms of this story to progress and to have Rey really have better understanding of Palpatine and who he is as a character, as Anakin was the one who spent the most time with him. But of course, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. May God bless you and the Force be with you. If you enjoyed this episode, and frankly, even if you didn't, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give this video a thumbs up and tell your friends to subscribe. Please check out the official Star Wars Coffee merchandise, and don't forget to check out all of the content playlists on this channel, including The Rise of Skywalker, The Mandalorian, and much more.